Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday afternoon, June 13th. We have an area of very strong thunderstorms developing right now over the upper part of the Midwest, impacting Minnesota, Wisconsin. This is an area that is kind of solidifying into a complex of showers and strong thunderstorms, what meteorologists often refer to as a mesoscale or small scale convective system, an MCS is the acronym, and in many cases it flows right along for many hours, and in some cases for many days, maintaining its strength. In this case, it looks like it will move northwest to southeast in the overnight hours from the upper part of the Midwest across the eastern Great Lakes and into the middle of the Mid-Atlantic region by the time we get to Tuesday morning, or perhaps as late as a Tuesday midday. All residents along the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor should be on guard for this particular system, especially, I think, in the D.C. to Philadelphia corridor. It certainly can impact as far north and east as New York City. Again, Tuesday morning, Tuesday midday is when this complex of thunderstorms arrives in the Mid-Atlantic region. We'll focus in on this and go over the details over the next several minutes. First of all, the overall upper level pattern that is conducive to this kind of a scenario for the Mid-Atlantic region will feature a strong high pressure ridge centered over the middle of the nation, or in this particular case right over the Mississippi Valley region. And on the outer perimeter of this high pressure ridge, it often is a very active zone for weather, meaning strong thunderstorms. This is kind of where the temperature gradient sets up in the outer perimeter, what I often refer to as kind of the ring of fire around a strong high pressure ridge. Underneath this ridge, very hot weather today, extending from the middle of the nation across the Midwest and all the way to the southeastern U.S. coastline. Very warm in the Mid-Atlantic region, but not excessively hot. That is more or less happening underneath the ridge. But this is the active zone region, and right as we speak there are explosive development of thunderstorms across Minnesota, Wisconsin. And notice this upper level flow flows from the northwest to the southeast. This is a red flag if you're living in the Mid-Atlantic region, when you have northwest to southeast flow aloft associated with a high pressure ridge over the middle of the nation, or in this particular case over the Mississippi Valley, because it often results in the movement of some very strong thunderstorm activity upstream into, in this case, the Mid-Atlantic region. That is indeed what is likely to happen. This complex of thunderstorms moves from the Midwest across the Great Lakes later on tonight from northwest to southeast, and winds up in the Mid-Atlantic region somewhere between D.C., Philadelphia, New York City in the Tuesday morning, Tuesday midday time frame, and we'll go through the details over the next several minutes. Well, let's take a look at the latest satellite imagery from the College of DuPage weather website. Look at this explosion of thunderstorm activity right now, right here. You can see multiple thunderstorms kind of coalescing into maybe what we call a meso-low, or a mesoscale convective system, an MCS, basically saying over a small scale region you have a complex of thunderstorms, and they often maintain their strength over many hours, over many days. If this is reminding some of you of the derecho event of June 2012, that is the type of scenario we're dealing with, where northwest flow in the upper part of the atmosphere over the Mid-Atlantic region can bring some very strong thunderstorms, severe thunderstorms in some cases, from the upper Midwest into the Mid-Atlantic region. So this is how it looks right now, the explosion of thunderstorms over Minnesota and Wisconsin. It will travel across the Great Lakes in the overnight hours, and likely arrive right in this region right here, sometime between D.C., Philadelphia, and New York City, and sometime between, let's say, 8 a.m. tomorrow and, let's say, noon, 1 p.m. tomorrow, Tuesday morning into the midday hours. This is the way that complex, or MCS, looks right now on radars. Don't be surprised if there's kind of a swirl developing here as a meso-low tends to form. And again, moving into Wisconsin area right now, it will then start to turn to the south and east across the eastern Great Lakes and arrive in the Mid-Atlantic region by tomorrow morning, perhaps as late as the midday hours. Well, I want to walk through three different computer forecast models. These type of events are kind of difficult to forecast, let's say 12 to 18 hours in advance. Not only is the timing difficult, but the ultimate location of a system like this is a little bit difficult to pinpoint, because any change in trajectory upstream can lead to some significant changes downstream. In this particular case, it's now over Minnesota, Wisconsin, and whether it ends up going directly towards DC or Philadelphia, a little bit too early to say. It certainly can impact that entire region from DC to Philadelphia, perhaps as far north and east as the New York City metro region. We'll go through three different models right now, two of which have it headed towards DC and perhaps DC, Philadelphia metro areas on Tuesday morning. The third, the NAM model, actually has it from Philadelphia all the way up to New York City. Let's go through this. Here it is as we begin the afternoon here on Monday afternoon. Going forward here, it drives to the south and east, and here it is. Not all that impressive looking on the GFS, but it does go towards the DC metro region, perhaps DC up to Philadelphia, bypasses to the southwest, the New York City metro region. Again, kind of underplaying, I believe. I believe the MCS will end up maintaining more strength than what the GFS is indicating right here. By the way, there's a weak frontal boundary zone kind of dropping southward through the Mid-Atlantic region. It will stall out somewhere in the southern part of the Mid-Atlantic region. And exactly where that stalls out over the next few hours will help to determine where this MCS will travel. It will tend to ride right along that stalled out frontal boundary zone. So if it goes a little bit farther to the south, that's more favorable for a direct hit, let's say in DC. If it stalls out a little bit farther to the north and east, maybe more favorable for Philadelphia and New York City. This is the outlook right now as depicted by the GFS model. Let's take a look at a couple other models. And here's the Canadian model, also known as the GEM model right here. And here is the depiction of the MCS right here as we begin the afternoon. And watch what this particular model does. It drops it south and east, similar to the GFS, and right towards the DC metro region, really anywhere from south central PA all the way to the DC metro region, and then the Delmarva Peninsula by tomorrow midday, and then off the southeastern U.S. southeast Virginia coastline by later on tomorrow afternoon. So the Canadian model, a little bit more intense than the GFS model, and a little bit slower, by the way, more like a late morning, midday hours. Also, like the GFS, kind of centered on the DC metro region up to, let's say, the Mason-Dixon line. Well, finally, let's walk through the NAM model here. These are all 12Z models from the early morning hours here. And this particular model, right now, we're going through hourly increments, features this system moving right over Michigan in the overnight hours. This is around the middle of the night. And then right into northwestern Pennsylvania by early tomorrow morning, and it traverses the state, ends up right over eastern Pennsylvania by, let's say, mid-morning on Tuesday. So the NAM model is a little bit farther to the north and east. We'll see it goes right over Philadelphia into southern New Jersey, and then off the New Jersey coastline by the early part of the afternoon. So a little bit too far away to pinpoint exactly where this Mesoscale convective system, or MCS, that is now located over the upper Midwest, where it ends up on Tuesday morning, perhaps as late as the midday hours, somewhere in the DC to Philadelphia to New York City corridor. Very likely could have some wild weather tomorrow morning into the midday hours. My favored location right now is somewhere in that DC to Philadelphia zone. Certainly Delmarva Peninsula, southern New Jersey can get impacted as well by midday on Tuesday. So something to pay attention to over the next several hours going into the overnight hours, and certainly could be some wild weather in the Mid-Atlantic region tomorrow morning into the midday. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.